4:30. This new one in effect for Frederick, Jefferson, and Washington until 4:45. A hefty line of storms here. You can see all of that thunder and lightning, especially between Hagerstown and Boonesboro. Always an indication that these storms have a lot of energy, and that's what we'll be tracking here over the next several hours. The biggest severe threat is going to be damaging straight line wind. However, some rotation not totally out of the question, especially through parts of northern and central Maryland. So we will be watching the potential for isolated tornadoes, but I'm really more concerned with straight line wind as we head through the evening tonight. So from Smithburg down into Shepherdstown, right along Route 40, you've got a lot of heavy rain, thunder, lightning, some winds that could gust 50 to 60 miles per hour. Another severe thunderstorm warning just off to the south through parts of Winchester, Clark, and Frederick. That one's also in effect until 4:30. The strongest part of that storm actually looks to be a little bit outside of the warning there. You can see over by Valley Mill Road near Greenwood Heights. So I'm going to track out this entire line because it's really starting to fill in. You can see those severe thunderstorm warnings kind of all starting to connect here. So this is going to move into the Frederick area around 5 o'clock tonight. These storms aren't moving very quickly, just kind of drifting off to the east around 20 miles per hour. So that also elevates our concern for some isolated flash flooding without that quick forward motion. Moving into Front Royal closer to 4:30 this afternoon. Leesburg, you can expect storms around probably 5:15, between 5:15 and 5:30. Into Germantown right around 6 o'clock. Rockville closer to 6:30. So we'll give you a wider perspective here, and you can see this massive storm system we're tracking. It extends all the way back into parts of central Pennsylvania and down off to our south and west. And again, over the next few hours, we just anticipate radar filling in more and more. So do want to check in now with meteorologist Grace Thornton. She has a solid hail core in it as well. That is likely some decent sized hail. So if you are in the area of this warning, again, that includes parts of Jefferson, Frederick, and Washington County. You can see just to the south of Shepherdstown, north of Boulevard, south of Roarsville. That's where you want to get your car inside if you can. What you're looking at there is that shading of purple south of Shepherdstown, indicating some of that really significant hail. And off to the north, the storm that includes more of Frederick County and Washington County until 4:45. That is mainly a wind concern, but we have kind of seen these storms pulsing up and pulsing down, indicating some of that growth, indicating we could see some smaller to large size hail. So the good news is Berryville, that did have a little hail core in there, that has since weakened just a bit, but still under a severe thunderstorm warning that includes Clark, Jefferson, and Loudoun County until 5:15. And off to the south, another warning that encompasses Strasburg, Front Royal into Upperville, and that storm is mainly producing some damaging winds. So again, I'm going to time out this entire line because it is becoming really well organized, and I do think that is going to hold together as it continues to push off to the east. But like I mentioned at the top of the hour, these storms are not moving very quickly. So now we also have a flooding concern. These storms pushing to the east around 20 miles per hour. That means in Frederick, you've got until about 4:52 until these storms move in. That might seem a little bit slow to me. I would say closer to maybe 4:40. I would plan on storms Tuscarora closer to the 5 o'clock hour, Leesburg as you get closer to say 5:15, and along the I-66 corridor here over the next several hours as it continues to drift off to the east. Now, I do want to also point out that we do have a few downpours and thunderstorms ahead of this kind of primary line we're tracking. Urbana seeing a moderate to heavy downpour, and these could be some of the areas that spell trouble for flooding as we head throughout the evening, where you see this kind of initial round of heavier rain and then you get hit again with another slow moving storm. We've got rain just off to the east of 270 from Germantown into Gaithersburg. You can see Laytonsville now has a crack of lightning, only getting in on a little bit of rain. We've got some heavier downpours through Calvert and St. Mary's County as well. From Mechanicsville down into Leonardtown, Prince Frederick, Huntington. No major significant organization here, but you are kind of getting some of that initial rainfall ahead of what we'll be tracking as we head through the evening tonight. And that is that line that's becoming a bit more organized just off to the east of the I-81 corridor. So we do have the weather impact alert until 10 o'clock tonight. A severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 10 o'clock tonight, but I will say most of these storms are out of here around 8-9 p.m. So that watch may get pulled back a little bit early. But as we head through the next several hours, watching the potential for strong winds, localized flooding. And while we do still anticipate most of those winds to be straight line winds, we are watching the potential for some rotation, especially through parts of central and northeastern Maryland. That seems to be the biggest area where we could see a little bit of low level shear, that changing wind speed with direction and height that could cause a few storms to rotate. So we'll certainly keep you posted as these severe thunderstorm warnings develop, and of course if a tornado warning is issued as well. But give yourself a little time for that evening commute. Give your loved ones a little extra time to get home tonight, and certainly make sure you have a way to get weather information as we head through the rest of our weather impact alert. The good news is, behind this strong cold front that's triggering all of these storms, smooth sailing through the rest of the week. Really nice weather, in fact. We'll have dropping humidity throughout the day on Wednesday. A little bit breezy, but that wind is coming in from the north and west. That is a cooler, much more comfortable wind for us. So with temperatures in the mid 80s, with mostly sunny to partly cloudy skies, going to be a really nice day to get outside, especially if you're heading to the Nats game. Great weather continues Thursday into Friday, and then over the weekend we start to ramp up humidity a bit, especially by Sunday. That will bring rain chances back into the forecast, and we'll keep some scattered storms around for the first part of August.
Okay, we just have to get through today.
Yes.
Kaitlyn, thank you.
Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Warren County until 5 o'clock this evening. You can see the center of the storm right now, right over Front Royal. Really dense thunder and lightning, always an indication that these storms have a lot of energy to work with. I will say, at last check, that rotation was looking pretty broad, but clearly enough for the National Weather Service to issue that tornado warning. So if you are within that tornado warned area, again, Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Warren County, you need to make sure you are getting into a safe location. This area right here over Front Royal, right at the intersection there of kind of 66 and 340 near Riverton, Happy Creek, and Dungadin Heights is where we are potentially seeing the storm rotate. I want to put on our velocity data. Again, this is a wind product that gives us an idea of how these storms are behaving if they are rotating. And what we're looking for here is kind of that bright red indicating wind moving away from radar, and that bright green indicating wind rotating toward radar. That gives us an idea of the spin in the atmosphere. And right now it does look like just to the south of Front Royal is where that possible rotation is, right where we see that red meeting that green. So you can see right along 522, Skyline Drive, over toward Brownton Road, Rivermount Drive, West Kreiser Road. This is the area where you really need to make sure you are getting into that safe location. A small interior room away from windows. A basement is always going to be your best option near Arco. If that is an area that sounds familiar, that's where you need to make sure you are seeking shelter. So I'll give you a wider perspective again of where this warning is and time this storm out for you. The National Weather Service does have it moving a little bit more off to the east southeast, still not at a great pace here, around 20 to 30 miles per hour, but we will help you time out when this could potentially move into your area as we head through the next, say, 20-30 minutes. Again, this tornado warning does include parts of Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Warren County. Didn't get a great track on that, so let's give you again a wider perspective, and we'll give you a closer look at where that tornado warning is, because keep in mind this is just one of several warnings we have on the map. Severe thunderstorm warning stretching all the way through parts of western Maryland, Washington County, Frederick County, down to where we now have this tornado warning as well. That tornado warning in effect until 5 o'clock, so we'll stay with you on the air until that tornado warning does clear. But right now the most suspicious part of that storm, the area that is potentially rotating, is located right over Front Royal as this storm continues to move off to the south and east. So let's try that again to try and time this storm out for you as it moves off to the south and east and not cooperating. So we'll get back over to that velocity data and see if we can give you an idea of where we are potentially seeing that rotation. Again, this is looking more like a radar indicated tornado, but a really solid radar signature there when it comes to what we look for when it comes to tornado warnings, indicating that we do have some rotation, possibly enough to leave a funnel cloud down to the ground just to the south of Front Royal, around Skyline Drive, just to the south of 522. Again, that's near Acre in that area. So if you are within that tornado warning, please make sure you are getting to that safe location. This storm kind of drifting off 522 just to the south of I-66. You can see Marshall, Amosville just outside of this warning, but I do want to get in a little bit closer there for you. Street level to give you an idea of where this storm is heading next, so you can make sure that you get into your safe location. If you have loved ones in the area that are within that red box, please make sure you're reaching out, making sure everyone knows where to go and is taking this warning seriously, because again, that is a pretty solid radar indicated tornado, and it did issue that tornado warning. So we'll give you 66, maybe a few more towns over near Crest Hill, Haxley's Crossroad, Condi, down into Clifton. That is where this tornado warned storm is heading out to next. So we'll zoom in, get you street level to where that rotation is being indicated right now. And again, we'll watch some of our other radar products to show us whether or not we are seeing potential rotation in that area or potential lofting into the atmosphere. But right around Front Royal, Skyline Drive, Leak Run Parkway. And keep in mind, these storms aren't moving super quickly. That's a little concerning, from a flooding perspective as well. But right now, our concern is really more so on that wind signature. So we showed you velocity. I do want to show you another product here we call correlation coefficient. It gives us an idea of whether or not we're seeing any kind of debris being lofted into the atmosphere. That can be anything from tree branches, leaves, to, potentially shingles off of roofs. But right now, not looking like we're seeing a ton in terms of correlation coefficient, maybe a little bit over Front Royal, but not necessarily the strongest signal that we would like to see there. So that is good news. Can be an indication that one, there's not a funnel on the ground, or two, we're not seeing strong enough winds to lead to that damage to loft the debris up into the atmosphere. So the tornado warning is for Rappahannock, Fauquier, and Warren until 5 o'clock, but do want to show you that we do still have those severe thunderstorm warnings stretching all the way off to the north and west. And we did just recently have that tornado watch issued until 10 o'clock. This actually does not include the areas that now have a tornado warning. It's really along and east of 95, but we are seeing some, rotation within the radar, a few kinks in the radar, as we'll call it, indicating that some of these storms could be rotating, but still some really strong winds, some really small to moderate sized hail in these storms stretching from Percival back into Brunswick. That storm looks like it's intensifying as well. And as you head closer to parts of Frederick and Washington County, do want to check in now with meteorologist Grace. Chester Gap area. This warning is again in effect for the next 20 minutes. And one of the issues that we are seeing with these storms as they develop today is that they're not moving very quickly. So that is good news from a preparation perspective, gives you a little bit more time to get to that safe location, but it's also going to enhance our flood risk here as we head through the next several hours. So the strongest part of this storm still kind of back into the northwestern part of that polygon. We'll put that velocity data back on to see how that rotation is looking, and we really haven't seen much change in it. It's right along 522. That's the area of most concern where we have that radar indicated tornado right now over Arco heading into the Huntley area. I do want to check that correlation coefficient one more time, because again, that gives us an idea if there is any debris being lofted into the atmosphere, and possibly seeing a little bit, but not exactly the signature that we are typically looking for when it comes to debris getting lofted into the atmosphere. But we do still have that tornado warning in effect until 5 o'clock tonight. Parts of Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Warren County. If you have loved ones in the area, please make sure you are checking in, making sure everyone is getting to that safe location. If you had the alert go off on your phone that you are within that tornado warning, please make sure you are getting to a small interior room. A basement is your best bet, but as Grace mentioned, just away from windows is where you need to be as this storm continues to cross south and west of Front Royal along 522. Again, Grace called out some of those towns that need to make sure they're getting into their safe location. But Huntley, this storm is heading in your direction. And next, Crest Hill, Vernon, also within this tornado warned storm until 5 o'clock. Now, I do want to show you again the rest of this line, because I was just looking at some other radar data behind the scenes. And while it is not looking like rotating wind, we are seeing some really powerful winds in this cluster of storms working its way through parts of northern Virginia, right along Brunswick. That's where we had some outflow clocking in 50, 60 miles per hour. So we say it all the time. A storm does not need to be rotating to cause significant damage. And that is a really powerful wind signature again over Brunswick into the Lovettsville area. You can see all of that thunder and lightning again, indicating a really strong storm here. This is near Slabtown, right along 180, Knoxville, New Edition. If you are in this area, I would treat this storm like a tornado warning, making sure you are away from windows, finding a safe place to seek shelter, because it doesn't need to be rotating to cause significant damage. And that whole cluster of storms is causing, or is showing rather, some really significant wind. But I do want to get you back to where we have that tornado warning in effect for at least the next 15 minutes or so here through Fauquier, Rappahannock, and Warren County. Now the storm again moving very slowly, so you do still have time to get into that safe location as this storm drifts off to the south and east. And we'll time it out for you here as it continues to drift into parts of Marshall and Amosville. Storm tracker really just not cooperating here today, but there we go. We got a better track for you there as the storm heads south of Marshall, again into the Huntley area in just about 5 minutes. You've got about 5 minutes to find that small interior room, a basement, get yourself away from windows, into Ada closer to 5:15, Marshall by 5:20. Of course, that is the time that, past the time rather that this tornado warning is set to expire. But if the National Weather Service does have indication that it is not weakening, it's not showing signs of letting up, they will extend that warning into those areas as well. And again, regardless of whether or not there is a tornado warning on any of these storms that do have severe thunderstorm warnings on them, you need to make sure you are getting to that safe location. So we'll show you again this whole line, because I'm also concerned about the Brunswick and Lovettsville area. Have not seen a considerable or a destructive tag put on these warning quite yet. That is something the National Weather Service does whenever there is a heightened level of concern for wind damage, but I don't think we're certainly too far off from that as these storms are continuing to strengthen as they push off to the south and east. But this is the area, all of that thunder and lightning from Burkittsville down into Slabtown, Lander, Brunswick, Lovettsville, Sandy Hook, even over toward Washington Junction and Jefferson. I would make sure you are getting to a safe location with these winds that are potentially gusting upwards of 60 miles per hour. So we'll check in again with that rotation, that velocity data here for this tornado warning. Again, our best tool to give us an indication if these storms are rotating. And what we're looking for is what you see kind of right along 522 there, that brighter shade of red up against that brighter shade of green. I will say this doesn't look as tight as it did before. Maybe some broader rotation, some rotation higher up in the atmosphere that isn't necessarily producing a funnel cloud, but right along 522 is where we do want to, make sure you are getting to that safe location in Huntley. I'll check in now with meteorologist Grace Thornton. Grace, have you heard anything from the National Weather Service about any kind of ground truth or any ground effect for Fauquier and Rappahannock County until 5 o'clock? Now, I will say I was just looking at some radar data behind the scenes, and that rotation has gotten much broader. We are not seeing that tight rotation couplet that we initially saw when this warning was issued. So they very well may still continue this until 5 o'clock. However, the storm is not looking as significant from a rotation perspective. So that is always good news there. But regardless, it is producing some really significant wind, whether it is straight line, whether it is rotating. But you can see even as that, cluster of thunder and lightning becomes a little bit more widespread, gives us solid hope that this storm is still strong, yes, but rotating, perhaps not. Now, it is heading into the Crestville area next, near Hackley's Crossroad, Condi, Clef Mill. So I would still get into and stay in that safe location until this tornado warning is either canceled or expanded a little farther off to the south and east. But I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about in terms of that, velocity, that rotation that we've been watching, because whenever this warning was first issued, we did have really solid radar indication that the storm was rotating. But you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, where that red and that green is looking a little bit more disorganized. You don't have that really tight couplet indicating that the storm is rotating, a really good sign when it comes to the possibility of a tornado being on the ground. And again, we did not get any ground confirmation of a funnel cloud, but rather a radar indicated tornado. Quite common for this area. And keep in mind that on the outskirts of that tornado warning, there's still a severe thunderstorm warning that includes includes parts of Warren and Rappahannock County still until about 5:15 this evening. But the strongest part of that storm does still appear to be within that severe warned area. We just got a report from our production crew that we have a camera to show you in Front Royal, and you can see it was trimmed back for Warren County but continues for Fauquier and Rappahannock County until 5 o'clock tonight. I do still want to show you that wider perspective because we've got really powerful storms just off to the north of that tornado warning. Still concerned about this area in particular. You can see just to the north of Leesburg, Brunswick, Lovettsville, heading toward Tuscarora. That's where we're still seeing some really significant wind. As Grace mentioned, there was a tornado possible tag on this storm. At last check, it did look to be more straight line wind in nature versus rotating. But if you are in Lovettsville, if you're in Luckett's, Tuscarora, this storm is heading into your area next, about to cross Route 15. Always a concern as we head through the evening rush to have storms of this magnitude producing just torrential rain, thunder, lightning, and again, not moving very quickly. Now off to the north and west, still some really powerful storms, all within severe thunderstorm warnings until 5. Thermont, the strongest part of this storm has cleared out of your area. Still some really heavy rain, lots of thunder and lightning, but Walkerstown, Libertyville, this is where we also have that wind threat as well, where we have the potential for these storms to rotate. As you get closer to Mount Airy, Lisbon, still seeing some strong wind, but again, no rotation necessarily on the map, but lots of heavy rain, thunder, lightning, lots of energy in these storms. Down into Montgomery County, little downpour into Darnestown, but the closer you get into town, we are still dry around the metro for now. But we have these kind of two broken segments of storms that we're tracking, one through parts of northern Virginia, now covering most of central and north central Maryland, but also the tornado warning that is still in effect for parts of Fauquier and Rappahannock County until 5 o'clock this evening. Here's a look at where we do have that tornado watch, which again did not include the area where we have the warning, but along the 95 corridor and off to the east, a tornado watch in effect until 10 o'clock. We also have that severe thunderstorm watch in effect for areas off to the west until 10 p.m. So we'll check back in on this tonight. You can see the whole polygon there for that tornado warning started to become a little bit more filled in with heavy rain, some thunder, some lightning. We'll check on the rotation there. And, you know, still actually seeing a little rotation there just off to the east of 522. Not necessarily as strong as it was when that warning was first issued, still a little disorganized. But right now, if there is a tornado on the ground, if a funnel cloud is extending to the surface, it would be closer to Crest Hill into Hackley's Crossroads. So we'll take that in mind and kind of time out the rest of this storm as it continues to work through that warned area. Again, we've got about 7 minutes on this warning, and we'll see if they drop it or extend it a little bit later into the 5 o'clock hour. But that's the area I would be most concerned with as far as rotation goes. We'll see if we can get a good track there on you, but sometimes our tools just don't cooperate for us. But that's the area that we really do need to be mindful of for that possible rotation here as we head through the rest of this tornado warned storm. Again, right now doesn't necessarily look like enough that I can confidently say they will let that warning drop at 5 p.m. There might be enough of a radar indication to keep that warning going, but right now I would say as you're closer to Front Royal, you are looking in better shape than areas near the Macedonia Baptist Church. Grace, I'm going to keep talking through radar here, but if you want to get a storm track up on that so we can see the rest of that track as it heads through parts of Rappahannock and Warren County until about 5 o'clock, that would be great, because again, our velocity data is still showing enough indication that that storm is rotating, that it does really warrant staying in that tornado safe area, your basement, a small interior room. But as I mentioned earlier, even if you are not within that tornado warned area, if you were back in the severe thunderstorm warning stretching from Loudoun County back into Frederick County, Washington County, please make sure you are also seeking that safe location. But doing a check-in now with Grace, she's got that storm track for you.